Hello guys, welcome to my channel Bengaluru Techies. This is the part 3 of .NET video tutorial series. Including this part and upcoming couple of parts, we'll be designing, developing, deploying and testing the full and functional working IMDB rating and review system. As planned, we'll be not only just developing this application but also parallelly understand and learn the concepts of CSharp and certain design principles and patterns. And on top of this, you will also be noticing how a full stack developer needs to know multiple languages to complete the complete application, including the components such as UI, business logics, and database to completely develop the application from the scratch. To be a good developer and to produce the most optimal code, you need to have a greater hold on the domain knowledge. With that domain knowledge, only you will be able to achieve the excellence in your project. Why? Because unless you know the problem statement for which you are trying to build a solution, you will be never able to build a solution to the more accurate. Even though you build a solution, it might come with large number of bugs or issues when it goes to the production. So knowing the business or domain knowledge is as much as important knowing the complete technical skills. Because of this reason, I have chosen IMDB as most of my audience could relate to the IMDB business requirements. IMDB will list number of movies which are released in a particular year or a particular time frame, and it will be displayed as a titles on their web page, and on these titles a user can click and notice the ratings and the comments which are provided for a particular movie. Based on this feedbacks, a user will decide whether to go and watch a movie or not. So since this is pretty simple and straightforward, connectable business knowledge, hence I have chosen to develop IMDB rating review system. With this business knowledge, let's switch to our technical requirements and see what is the application which we are trying to build here. What are the technical requirements of the same? This is the complete workflow of our IMDB application. This is a custom IMDB app for .NET tutorials from our team Bangalore Techies. When the user tries to access our system, we'll land him on the login page. On the login page, you will be provided two options. One is to log in to our system or to register himself. So assume even though he doesn't have a valid credentials, he tries to log in, the user validation flow will be invoked. The user validation flow is again split into two sub processes to check whether user already there in our system. If already there in our system, we will continue with the user authentication flow. If not, we will redirect him to the registration page. So assume instead of clicking login, he directly clicked the registration page. He will be redirected to the registration page where user will be asked to provide certain details. He will fill all those details. The fill details will be saved in our system, and he will be again redirected to the login page from where he can continue with the user authentication flow and access our system. Assume now the user is already within our system and he provides his valid username and credentials, and the user validation flow is started and user authentication sub process also kicked in. And within the user authentication flow, we are checking whether the provided details is valid or not. If it is invalid details, user will be kept in this login page by giving the prompt saying that you have provided a either wrong email address or a password combination. And if it is a valid user, then we will be checking if the user is an admin user or a normal user. Here we'll be having a role-based authentication. So this regarding this flow, I'll be explaining in a bit. If the user is a normal user, the user will be able to see all the movies listed and its overall rating. On click of the individual movie title, the user will be taken to the complete details of the movies, where he will be able to see the complete details of the movie, as well as he'll be able to see the comments and the ratings provided by multiple users. On the landing page or the main page, it will be just the overall ratings and just the movie titles with the image, whereas in the inside of the same, you'll be able to see the complete details and the multiple reviews and ratings provided by individual customers who are already within our system. This is for a normal user flow. And once he sees here, again he can go and provide his feedback. That is, he can rate either by using the star rating, or he can comment down his comments, whatever he wants to give as a feedback or as appreciation that he can give, and that same data will be saved in our database. And next time whenever he logs in, he'll be able to see his ratings. He can also, here we are allowing him to give multiple comments also. He can come multiple times and provide multiple comments, even everything will be listed. And assume if he is an admin user, then he'll be redirected to a page where he'll be able to see all the movies, and but he is not allowed to provide any comments or ratings, provide the bias and keep it fair. But he'll be having an option which is not available for a normal user, that is adding a new movie. As you also know, in the real IMDB application, you will be not able to add any movie of your choice, but the movies will be added by the IMDB system and you will be able to go and give the ratings. So we are also keeping the same flow. The admin, who is the IMDB user, IMDB application system user, he'll be able to add any new movies into the system, and the normal user can come and look into those movies ratings which are already provided, or he can also go ahead and provide his ratings and his feedbacks. Admin can add a new movie, and the added new movie will be saved in our database, and going forward, whenever a normal user or a admin itself logins, they'll be able to see the newly listed movie. So this is the technical requirement, and upon which we'll be developing the application. It has mainly three components. One is role-based authentication, another is user registration, the next thing is movie display and feedback saving. If you have watched my previous video where I have detailedly discussed about what is the application template we need to choose based on the requirements and how to make a decision. As you can see in our requirement, there is nowhere it is a specification has made a particular OS or a particular nativeness of a OS dependency. For this requirement, instead of building a system specific or OS specific application, I would be building a web application. Once it is developed, you would be just needing a URL through which everyone can access your system and utilize the same. So let's start building the application. So for the development, we'll be using Visual Studio 2022 community version. And for data storing and retrieving, we'll be using SQL Server. And for deployment, we'll be using the local IAS. If you have not installed any of this softwares in your system, please watch my other videos where I have a detailed guide on how to install Visual Studio 2022, SQL Server, and how to enable IAS on your local system. I'll leave the links in the description. Please watch them and set up your environment. Let's switch to Visual Studio and start our development. So as we have decided, we'll be developing a web application. So you can come here and search web in the search bar, or on this project type drop down, you can select web. So on selecting of web, these are the different templates which Visual Studio offers for us. So here I'll be selecting MVC. So ASP.NET Core Web App, Model View Controller. Click next. Let me name the application as IMDB. Click next, and I don't do any changes here. Click on create. So it will load up a basic template of your application. So this is your default template of MVC web application. And if you run this application, before running, let's build and make sure there is no issues. There will be no issues as it is just created. The build is succeeded. If you run the application, a default website will be loaded for you, and it has default web pages which are as part of the template. So you can see the welcome page that is under home, and you can click on the privacy, which will have a little information about the privacy. So this is the default pages as part of your standard template. So we will start modifying this and make it to look like our IMDb application. Now let's switch to SQL and start creating our database. So here I'll be using database first approach. There are like multiple approaches people will tend to use over the period based on their requirements or based on the need. So few will go with the domain driven, few will go with the TDD, test driven, and a code first, database first approach. So there are multiple ways to start building of application. Here I'll be starting with the database first approach. Going forward, I'll be explaining what are the different design patterns which I have used here, or any architectural point of view which are required to understand. Those all points I'll be going forward explaining to you guys. So as you all know, ours is an IMDb application. What I will do is I'll go ahead and connect to my SQL server. So this is my system's SQL server. I have connected using Windows authentication. Now let's create a new database here. So whatever you are doing here, you can do the same thing by using a SQL queries. So the GUI offers simplest operations which could be performed. But any complex operation you need to do on SQL, you need to write a queries. Let me name it as IMDB. On click of OK, a database will be created. As you can see, a database got created. So as you all know, this application, we have two flows. One is admin flow, another is a normal user flow. And here I need to store user information. So that includes both admin user and normal user. And then I need to store the information of movies. So admin can come and add multiple movies. Under the movies, the ratings and the comments will be stored. So typically it is like max to max 4 to 5 tables we will be having in this system. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and create first users table. You can either again use the GUI option, like right click here and click on this, right click on this new table, and use this option to create a data tables. But here I am more comfortable using query, so I'll be going ahead with the query. In the syntax for creation of table in the SQL is create table and the table name. Here it is users, and then there is a small brackets, and within this you have to mention the columns. Okay, so I'll be using ID. So this is a default auto-generated system values. So since I need it to be a default and auto-generated by system, what I'll do is I'll make it as first I'll set the data type to be big int. So since I don't want it to be null, you have to specifically mention not null. I'll set this itself as a primary key. So let me set primary key constant. So whenever you are not aware of this syntax, you are always welcome to go on Google and find out what is the syntax for the same, and you can use it. Okay, so let me see how the syntax can be given here. So yeah, okay, it is constraint and like this. So let me give something like this constraint. So it is pk users. So here, this is the way I'll use pk, the column name and the table name. Going forward, this I'll be not showing all the table creation. I'll be creating all the tables at one shot and displaying the same. So to keep the video very simple and short. And apart from the ID, I need username. So for this, I'll give varchar. So say username can be max to max of what, like 500 of length. So, and this also I don't want it to be null. Here I'm not asking user to provide like first name, middle name, last name. I'm just storing all the complete name in one single field, that is username. And then I need user email address. So this we will make it as a unique key, because any user already having an email address should not be again getting registered again and again in our system. So max to max email can be of 100 or 200. So let me mark it as 200. Again, this is also not null, and as I said, you can mark this as unique here itself, or at the below you can add this constraints. So let me add it below here. So unique key constraint, so I'll give it as uq. The column name is email id and the table name is user. So, and what else information of user we need? We need is mobile details. Even though we in this application we might integrate email flow, but not the mobile flow, again because it incurs some charges, so we'll be not integrating any SMS related flows, but still it is good to have information. It is a basic demographic information of any user. So let me get his phone details saved. So again, phone number is like in India, it is like 10 with the country code and all. Max to max, it is like 12. So, but still, I'll go ahead with give 15, and it is not a mandatory, so it can be null. So either you can mention null or you can remove it. It is by default nullable. Okay. So similarly, like phone number, I would need is address, which I'll make it is again like 200. I'll make, or the address one, I'll make it 200, and address two is 100, and then pin code. I can ask everything in one single field itself, but the UI registration form looks very simple in that case. So that's why I'm splitting into multiple fields, so that even in the registration form, it looks rich. Again, in India, pin code is 7 characters. So we can have max 10, and this is also nullable. And apart from pin code, what else we would need from a user is, yeah, and as I said, like in our application, there will be two roles. One is admin, another is normal user. So user role. So typically in real time or like in a big applications, what happens? Multiple roles will be there. It will be not single or like just one or two roles. Normal user and admin. They'll be having multiple roles like super admin, practice admin, and there many different roles. Might be different roles based on their domain. If it is in a banking firm, it is might be manager, and then what else? Like the normal employee within that, and the higher authority of a manager might be that bank's GM, like that, multiple roles based on their domain, based on their application necessity. They'll be having a different roles for that particular application, and according to a role, a different workflow will be set up. So for that reason, typically what we will do is we will create a separate table called roles, where we'll store all the lookup values of the roles, and that ID will be stored, not the role. But here it is since only just two roles. One is admin, another is normal user. I'll be not creating a lookup table for roles. So here I'll say varchar 10, and this is not null, and I need user's password. So because you need to log into our system, so password again I'll give 200. Again, this should not be null, and I need auditing of the user. So the auditing in the sense when he got created. So I'll keep this field also date time, and this also should be not null, because I need to know when he got created and updated. So if he gets updated, so when he got updated, so that information also I need. But this I need not to be mandatory, because at the time of creation he is actually getting created, there is nothing getting updated, so this field is null at that point of time at least. So this is allowed to be null. And then we can have is active flag. So say in going forward, admin decides I don't want this user to be getting participated, or like he wants to suspend his account for a while because of any violation, then I can use the is active and just make it as inactive, so that the user will be not able to use for a particular duration when he was inactive, instead of completely removing his account. So we can make him as inactive for a while. So this I'll make it as bit, which can be either true or false. So here what I'll do is default, I'll make it as true. So when you do this, what you have to do is you have to again mark it as not null. Otherwise, it will be, since if you're not marked as not null, it will become null. So let me add a default key constraint. So if you don't add also like this, it will add a system generated constraint name. So if it is good practice to add, but I'll show if you don't add how it looks. So that's why I'll not add for is active field. So I guess this is the pretty much value I need for a user to be in my system is username and the email address, phone number, address, phone, pin code, sorry, a role, password, created time, updated time, and is active or not. So apart from this, we might also include something like picture and his complete trial, like whatever he is doing at the point of time, what he actually did. All those things can be included, but currently I don't need. Or any another fields you could think of, like is document verification we might need to do. So might be a government document ID or any document ID to make it look official. So that also we can ask him to provide, but we don't need that for our demo purpose. So this would be my user table script. So if I execute this, it will go ahead and create my table. So if I just show this table, so if you can see here, this is my table. So users table, it is under schema dvo, and these are the columns which I created, and this is the capacity or length of the columns which I provided, and whether they are nullable or not nullable, and the constraints which as I just mentioned. So these are the constraints. So here you see wherever I provided my constraint names, that is mainly for email and the primary key ID. So it is whatever the name I give, and this is the one which system generated. So it generates with some random numbers and kind of things, sometimes with the random strings. So instead of this, it is always good to provide your standard formats of a constraint name. And if you come here and expand this now, a users table will be available. So like users table, we also need different table, and as I told, I'll be explaining the other tables which we'll be using in this particular. So similar to that, we would be needing a movies table where we'll be storing all the movie related information. So the information such as a name, category, whether it comes to comic or whatever the category, sci-fi, something like that, any tagline, picture of the movie. So a single photo we are supporting as of now, and movie duration, heroine ID, hero ID, and the director ID. Why I have chosen the ID instead of a name, I will explain in a bit. And description about the movie, release date, number of songs, and this is for auditing tables. And if you notice here, there are constraints. One is primary key constraints on ID, and the unique key constraints on the combination of name and category. And if you see, there is a foreign key references of hero, heroine, and director ID on to the movie cast table, right? If you have watched any online web series or any places, you would be noticing the movie cast details getting listed separately towards your left hand side, or might be in the cast information details, right? So there is a chance the movie hero or heroine might be taken part in multiple different play roles as well, means multiple movies also. So that is the reason why what I have done is I have created a separate table itself. Instead of storing the movie actor's name again and again, all the movies, for example, say there is a movie X and these are the person, that is hero, heroine, and director, and the same can be cast for movie Y. So instead of storing them again and again, what I have done is I have created a separate table called movie cast, where I'll be storing their vital information. Here in this place, it is name, type, whether they are a director, hero, heroine, that kind of category, picture of them, and a description, little bio kind of thing. And this is an auditing table. What I'll be doing is I'll be going and linking them. So the same movie person can be a part of this movie or in another movie as well, right? The director can be directed multiple movies. So whenever there is a possibility, I'll be just have to select that person, so that if you click on this particular person, you'll be able to see his complete or her complete details, right? So that is the reason why I have taken this approach. And going forward, again, I have created a table called movie review, where we'll be storing the reviews and ratings provided by the users. So if you see the table details, it has review, ratings. So ratings is a star rating, review is kind of a free text where they can write something, and I've given 500 as a possible length of that. And rating is a decimal. They can give like 3.4 stars or something like that, or whatever the star ratings, and the user ID. So the ratings is given by a user. That's why there is a foreign key constraint on this user ID, and the rating is given to the movie. As of now, we are supporting ratings only on the movie, not to the movie cast, right? So that is also possible, and it is there in multiple places also. You can rate the user actors as well, right? But here currently we are not supporting that particular flow. The user can go ahead and rate a movie. Whenever the user rates, I know for which movie he has rated and what is the ratings he has given. or the free text he has written. So these are the tables which I would be needing to develop IMDb. And being that said, there might be a chance I'll come in future and modify any of the table. Like I might add some tables, or I might add some columns for the existing table, or modify the length of the columns which are already existing. So this is how the development works in the real time, right? So we will be time in time reviewing our table structures or the column structures, and we'll modify based on our need. So let's cross verify this with our technical flow diagram and make sure we are sitting, like we are having all the basic data storing capacity according to the flow. So the login details and user validation details, for this kind of flow we need a user information to be stored. So we have a user, and registration is nothing but user registration we are doing. That also again goes to the users table, so we have that. And then in the users table we have a role, whether it's admin or not, so that will be sufficed with the users table itself. Then coming to showing all the displaying all the movies, that is listing of all the movies and ratings. For this we have movies table and the ratings table. And then allowing the super admin to add a movie. So whenever he adds a movie, that is add operation, so that again it goes and sits on the movies table. Whenever the users adds or provides a comments or feedbacks, that goes and sits in the movie ratings table. As of now, whatever is required, it is already there in our system. So let's switch to Visual Studio and see how the development of the applications begin. So let me execute this. Now if I go ahead and refresh my tables under this IMDb database, I should be having all the required tables, that is users, movie, movie review, movie cast. So let me switch to Visual Studio and start with the application development. So currently, as you can see, I just have a web project, so which is my base project which will run. So here I'll be using entire architecture. So what I'll be doing is all the database related and business logic I'll be keeping in a different projects. So for that I'll be creating a class libraries. They are not executable. They will be just a class library which are portable kind of thing. So why people will do like this? It increases the readability. It helps in debugging also and maintaining also. So for multiple reasons, they will go with this particular pattern. So what I'll do is I'll add my database layer first. So right click on the solution and select add and select new project. And here you can select class library, so you can type class library. So select this one and click next. So here you can so this will be for database layer, so I'll name it as imdb.dl. So DL stands for data access layer. I'll say next. If the projects are having a different versions, then they won't support with each other, right? So now let me have another project again, that is also class library. This is for business logics. Okay, so as you can see, now I have three projects. One is a executable project, that is my web project, and then there is a project to hold all the business logics, and then there is a project to hold all the database related activities, that is data related logics, right? So now how this should communicate is the controller, that is the web project, should communicate to the business logic project. The business logic project should communicate to the data logic project, and it should retrieve the data from here. This particular data project should make a connection to database, retrieve the data upon the request from the business, and provide it back it as a response. And similarly, the business should provide back it as a response to the IMDb web project. Okay, so let me go ahead and add the references. So here if you see, I am not adding a reference of data layer to the directly to the web project, right? So that is not required. So, and if you add now, there is no issues. It will not create any issues, but that's not the standard way we follow. And you can't add, say for example, now the BL project as a dependency of DL project, that is business project as a dependency on DL project. And there might be a chance you might think, okay, I can directly add this reference and use some stuff. So you can't do like that. So if you try to add a BL project reference here, it gives circular reference error. Okay, let me try to add and see whether it gives a circular reference issues. It is not giving any issues. Like typically it used to bring a pop-up banner here saying circular reference not allowed. So but anyways, it is not getting added. Also if you see the CS proj, the BLA is not getting added. Okay, but if you see the CS proj, the data layer is getting added here, right? So that is the reason it is not getting added. So there will be a circle reference issues. So the Visual Studio by default, it won't allow you to add that kind of dependencies here. So let me build the solution and see whether it builds successfully. The build is successful. So here for database access, like to connect to the database, retrieve the data from the database, and to store the data to the database, I'll be using EF Core. Accessing the database using EF Core or a Dapper kind of Nugget packages are like having lots of advantages. For that reason, I'll be going with the EF Core as of now here. So what you have to do is you have to go ahead and install certain Nugget packages for the same. So let me go ahead and install Nugget packages which are required for this. So if you search here EF core, you'll be getting a couple of nugget packages, so you can install them. And as I said, like I am doing a database first approach. Now my database is ready. I'll be not coming in here creating all those context classes. Instead of this, I'll be using commands, that is scaffold commands, which will create a class for me just by executing that command. So all the database related classes will be added automatically just by executing one command. So for that reason, I would be needing a tool also, that is this one. So you would be needing a Microsoft Entity Framework Code Design tool, sorry, package, and I would be needing this also, that is Microsoft Entity Framework Code tools. So I'll install this as well. So if you come and search for like a DB first approach, scaffold commands, ignore the spellings, EF core. So here this is a DB first approach. As I said, like I have created all the database related objects for me as of now, and I have established their relations also by giving the foreign key constraints or like unique key constraints, whatever the constraints required, that also I've already provided. Now I need to scaffold them and bring the entities similar to that into my project. So this is the command. As you can see, scaffold db context, connection string, provider name, output directory, and context. So this will create. So let me use this command and create the entities in within my project. So once I execute that command, this is the expected. All the tables in your system will be brought it here as a classes or object at objects, and a context class will be created through which you will be able to access the theme. So one more thing, when you are executing, you will get an option here, that is you can use fluent assertion or you can use attributed related assertions. Okay, so this is when you want to execute in .NET CLI. Similarly, you can execute even in the PowerShell also. So let me copy this and modify the connection strings accordingly. The dot stands for local server, and my database name is IMDB, and connection trusted connection true stands for Windows authentication. Otherwise, you need to provide your username and password, and output to the models. So where you want this to be going and save, so that would be your directory name. So I'll provide as of now similar to this. So let me try to use as it is. By default, it will be fluent assertion. So let me execute this. Click on the tools and then click on hover over on Nugget Manager and select package Nugget Manager. And on this, I need the project point to be imdb.dl. Here, paste that command and try to execute that. So EF is not recognized. So I think instead of EF, I have to use context here. It should be like whenever you're executing in a package manager, it should be scaffold db context instead of EF code EF to scaffold db context. So and remove this db context here again, the scaffold also. This would be your command. Execute this. At this point of time, it builds your solution. If the build is successful, then it makes a connection to your database and then try to create. So the build is successful, but your startup project IMDb does not reference. Okay, so as you saw, like I added references to a DL project directly, but to make this operation, you need to have the reference even in the startup project also. So, or you can, as of now, you can change this as your startup project. So let me re-execute that. So now I have not installed this Microsoft Entity Framework Core SQL Server package. So let me install this as well. So any issues are there, even as you can see here, you'll be getting all those information. So you can tackle it immediately. So click on install. It will install the required packages and dependencies. Let me again execute the command and see. So this is a warning which says you should not store the connection string decrypted and in a more accessible way. You should encrypt it and keep it. So just a warning. I guess it is now trying to make a connection to my system, and it made a connection, but there are some issues here. A network related issue occurred, so it was not able to connect to my database. So let me connect to my database and see. It is not just SQL Express in my system, it is MS SQL Server 2019. So let me change this connection string. So instead of just SQL Express, I have to provide MS SQL Express, sorry, MS SQL Server 2019. Now again re-execute this command. So the execution is successful and it created a context class as well as all the entities in the database project. So if I expand this one, so under the models directory, if you see, there is a database context class, that is this one, through which I'll be able to access all my entities or tables. So these are my tables in my database, that is movie cast, movie review, and users. If you inspect or like if you open any one of them and try to see whatever the relationship you did, right, all the foreign key relationship, everything will be mentioned here. So all the relationship also will be tied. So if I scroll down here and show you, so here you see any constraints you added, like the default key constraints and the type, everything will be visible here. So this is a unique key constraint you can see here, and there is a foreign key constraint, so even that is also mentioned, right? So this is how you will scaffold the database context and bring it to your project. All my database related objects are available. So let me go ahead and delete this class, default one. So now I am successfully able to connect to the system and get the entities established here. So this is what I need it in my DL project as of now. So, and the DL project is already referred to BL project, and BL project is referred to IMDB project. In this part, we understood what is our requirement, what is the application we are developing, and we also understood what is our little thing about the MVCA project which we are using, and what is the entire architecture which we are implementing here, implementation of entire architecture advantages. And also we also understood what are the tables we need, and we also reviewed the table columns, and also we understood going forward we might even commit and change. After this, we installed the nugget packages which were required to connect to this database via entity framework core. After that, again we executed a scaffold commands and brought all the entities from our database, bind it to our database project. So this is for the part 3. In the part 4 and upcoming parts, we will be using this context class to retrieve the data and also to store the data to our database. And also we will be starting designing our UI and the business logic. Thank you for watching. Happy coding.